Hello everyone, this video is an introduction to Module 5. So Module 5 is the first module where we're going to start focusing on the heroes rather than the pantheon. The Greek heroes are possibly even better known figures in Greek mythology than the gods and goddesses, and they have quite a few stories that involve the gods and goddesses but also have their own stories with them. And so we're going to start with the two probably most famous, which would be Heracles and Theseus. What's interesting about Heracles in particular is you'll see a lot of crossover. So Heracles will actually show up in multiple stories of other heroes. He'll show up in Theseus's story, he'll show up in Jason's story, and so Heracles is probably the best known of all of our Greek heroes. These heroes are heroes because they are fathered by the gods, and that's really the only reason why. They're not necessarily good people. And so I think you'll find that some of these stories are a little bit different from what you remember from your childhood, maybe, or some movies that you've watched. They definitely, our idea of being heroic and heroism is very different in our current society than it would have been for the Greeks. For the Greeks, it really just meant that this person has an ability beyond what normal people have. Typically, it's a strength. Some of our heroes are a little bit smarter. Odysseus is a hero because he's so much smarter than other people. But in general, it's a strength thing. So, just like I said, we're starting with Heracles and Theseus. We have readings here listed. Your readings come from 3 chapters. The story of Heracles is here. Most of you are probably familiar with some of his story, at least, especially the 12 labors. But there might be a lot of this story that you have never heard before. So I think I like to start with Heracles just because we have a little bit more of a basis for starting it. The story of Theseus is very similar to Heracles. He has labors just like Heracles. He's a call to action just like Heracles. But he actually has 2 chapters, and the reason is because there's a whole set of myths surrounding the island of Crete, which is where Theseus goes to fight the Minotaur. The Minotaur and the Marathonian bull, which fathers the Minotaur, the bull itself shows up in several stories as well. But Theseus and the Minotaur is probably one of the other most famous stories from our Greek heroes. And then we also have the story of like Daedalus and Icarus, which you might be familiar with. And so we've got a lot of that is connected together as well. So you'll start to see a pattern in these chapters where we get the kind of beginnings of either their house, if you will, so their storyline of who they're related to, and then you'll also see that then we get to the hero story itself, and some of the heroes stories are connected and some of them really aren't. So like Heracles has some deeds in his youth that are actually, it's kind of humorous. There's a lot of humor in his story, but it doesn't seem to be directly connected to the 12 labors that he has to do. So you'll see that there are a lot of smaller stories within the larger story, and it's really just how oral tradition is passed down. How do we start to connect things together? Well, these are all stories that are surrounding Athens, and then as we start to tell them and retell them and retell them, suddenly all these characters start to become related to each other. So like the story of Procne and Philomena, they are the beginnings of Theseus's house, and so you'll get to see how things are starting to interconnect. I've got a couple of videos for you. I did put the one from the Disney Hercules movie in just because I loved that movie as a kid, and of course it is a huge disappointment once you actually learn what the myth is, but obviously they couldn't, tell it like it really is for children. I'm interested to see if they actually do a live action version of this one. But there's also a Clash of the Gods version of Heracles and one for the Minotaur too. But I did put this TED Ed video for the Minotaur, just if you're interested in learning more about it. And then the last thing I have linked for you is a little bit more about the Amazons, the Amazonian women. So this tribe of women who, you know, through mythology are riding around on horseback, and they have a women-dominated society, and the men are slaves and just used for procreation and that kind of thing. That is a story that is prominent in Greek myth, but may or may not have actually existed. The textbook author does not believe that this is based in any reality. It's what's called mythical inversion, because the Greeks viewed women as necessary for just being in the household, and women who were strong, women who fought, they were to be feared. And so it's the idea that they are exploring their fears through their stories. That's a mythical inversion. So it's an inversion of the society that exists. However, there has been some archaeological evidence that may have inspired these tribal stories that we get through the Greek myths. And so there is a possibility that there was a group of women riding around on horseback that inspired them. So you can believe what you want to believe. Anyway, so those are the readings and some of the information background. And the other thing I want you to read is this information about Joseph Campbell's hero journey, because we are going to be talking about this for most of the rest of the semester. Joseph Campbell is probably the most important person in our study of mythology. He is world-renowned. He has done most of the major works where literature or where mythology has been compiled, have Joseph Campbell, and it has been involved somehow. His main idea, and it's in a book that's called The Hero with a Thousand Faces, and his main idea is that every hero story has the same story arc. That is, they go through the same parts of their story, of the parts of their journey. And there are 4 basic steps. They have a call to adventure, so that is how they get involved in it to begin with. They're involved in challenges and temptations of some kind. So there's obstacles to overcome. They have some kind of transformation, whether that's physical or mental, and then they return to where they came from, but with a new understanding. And so I have a ton of stuff in here for you. And then if you have time, this is a fantastic interview. And I love, he uses a lot of Star Wars references. So if you like Star Wars, you'll really like this interview. But he goes through and he's just got a ton of stories. He is so smart. He just pulls these stories out of his head. But all different areas, all different traditions, all different cultures, they all have the same type of journey for their heroes. And so it's really fascinating to watch this. But I want you to have that understanding as we start to read through these hero stories. Readings quiz like we've done before, and then the last assignment is just a discussion board on Greek myth. You can pick any topic for your discussion board post. The first post needs to be what you're going to write about. So you could do a story, a character, a place, an object. Don't feel like you need to do like a myth as your thing that you post about. You could pick, you know, Mount Olympus or something could be one of your topics, but you can't do a topic that somebody else has done. So you may want to, you can post your post right here. You know, so if you want to do Mount Olympus, you just put Mount Olympus, spell it, and then you post it, and then now you've saved your topic, so nobody else can do that topic. And then you're going to go through and find sources to back up your topic and explain them, and then you're going to respond to your 2 of your peers to add sources. So the idea is that once we're done, we'll have this huge list of different discussions of Greek myth, and we have a bunch of sources that we can look at, which just provides more information, more in depth than we could possibly get just by looking at the textbook. So lots of different ideas for this one. This is then that is the module that we'll be doing. The next module, we're going to actually start writing our critique essay. And so I have the assignment posted here at the end of module 5. So you're not going to actually write this until the end of module 6, but I wanted it in here for those of you who need more than a week to really write an essay. Plus you are doing a critique of something that is a work of literature or a book, film, TV series, anything, video game, comic, that kind of thing. So some of you may have to spend a little bit of time finding the thing that you want to critique and then accessing it, reading it, watching it, that kind of thing. So this just gives you an extra week to do that. So that is the idea behind that assignment. If you have questions, feel free to send me an email. Otherwise, I hope you're having a great week.